Hello, welcome to episode 117 of this series where I'm making an NES game tonight live on Twitch and from scratch with a new setup here for the streaming. I've got chat now in the window in this area here, sort of on the right hand side. Hopefully that'll be cool, so people can actually see what the discussion is going on. I have this other one that I was using, um, which was just this one, which didn't really capture the discussion much. And I want that to be for more when I'm just doing my regular programming and recording, so that people who join the live stream can see their comments show up in the stream, and everybody can see the discussion that's happening on here. So on I guess it was Tuesday, I posted a video talking about the so no, I wasn't working on audio in the last the last episode. I did that on the previous one, got some basic music to play, and then was kind of like, I think we probably want to just use a sound engine like GG Sound or Famitone or Pentley. One of those, I just think, for the purposes of what we're doing right now, I want to focus on the gameplay, and then we can circle back and build an audio engine if we feel like we should cover that extensively in the series. Only because there are actually a lot of good options available for audio right now. And it's one of those things where I'm not sure how much people will get out of us recreating an audio engine. I mean, we can definitely do it, but I want to do that maybe after we build a bunch of stuff related to the game, because I'm hoping to get this done this year, and an audio engine can take quite a bit of time to build. So what I wanted to do on stream tonight was talk about two things. One was talk about the I don't know that it was a rant, but the sort of ranty part that I had in the beginning of the last episode about game creation, using game creation tools, and the perception that the only good games are only created by people who write games from scratch. And I don't think that's true. I think that's obviously a sort of elitist sort of point of view on how this is done. Now, there are good reasons why people have that perception of game engines, and it's because there are a lot of them that are pretty poorly written. But at the same point, there are benefits, especially for people who aren't programmers, to use them. And so I was hoping we would chat about that on stream tonight for anybody interested in talking about that. And then I also wanted to work on some gameplay mechanics here, since we are past the point where the scrolling was broken. It's working now. So we have... Oh geez, I forgot about this. So we have this bit of the level where you can kind of navigate through this maze of collidable tiles, and then once you're past that, it will switch over to the repeat scroll mode. What I'd like to be able to do is maybe have the game start in repeat scroll mode. Well, I don't know if I can actually do that. I don't know. All right, I don't want to spend too much time making that possible, so maybe what we'll do is we'll just make it so that we can get into a point where we have some enemies spawning. I'd like to do some work with some of the mechanics are around the way that the game is played. Right now, we have a few enemies that we've established. They're all pretty straightforward. There's the one that, if I remember right, I forget what it's called, but it's let's see. I think it's the shooter enemy, and that basically just fires off some bullets at you after you pass it by. I don't actually even remember 100%. So let's go back and take a look, because we had worked on that a few weeks ago, actually a bunch of weeks ago, and at this point they are kind of vague in my memory what they actually are and do, since they were just kind of us putting together some ideas. One thing we can do is we can look at the code for some of these. So alright, so there was this guy, the flyby, and it fires 3 bullets, one to the left, one to the center, and one to the right, as it passes by. What else? What else did we write here? Oh, there was the low altitude projectile, so it then, let's see. Let's put one of those on the map. I'm going to crash here in a second. If everything is working. Yep, cool. So let's take the enemy stream off. The map. Let's get rid of also these collidable tiles, since not super interested in dealing with any of that right now. Layers. We know it works, so let's just leave it at that for now. All right, so that's a chunk of map. Let's introduce, let's get rid of enemy. Well, we don't have to get rid of it. We want to add to it the low altitude projectile, which, how did we, I don't even remember how we did that. Was that with the medium one? Sorry, it's like I said, it's been a while, so I've kind of forgotten how we even did this. Did I get rid of? It's interesting, so it's in there. All right, so it is in there. Is it because? Right, because I included the sprite in the list there. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay. Let's take a look at, I forget what the syntax is here for that. One thing I will mention is that this is going to be the last video for a couple of weeks. I will be unavailable for the next couple of weeks, so I won't be posting recordings or streaming for those next 2 weeks. After the 16th of July, I'll be back, and then we'll pick up where we left off, and keep plugging away at what we're doing here. So, oh, sprite to JSON. Okay, that's what I thought. So it totally has nothing here. Okay. So that looks okay. Just wanted that to be transparent. Save that. What I just don't know why. I don't know why the low altitude projectile is not in the tile sets like it should be. Alright, let's create a new one. What? No tiles found in tile set when using based on tile set image, tile width 16 by 16. I thought it was 16 by 16. Oh, it's 8 by 8. Okay. So let's add this here. Oh, not to that. First of all, I want to add that, and then I want to add that to that layer. Why is it showing up so tiny? Weird. It's 8 by 8, so it should just be normal size. No. There we go. All right. So export that as that, and then I'm gonna export the tile set too. Forgot to do that. Okay. Let's re-export that with the asset tool. And it broke. Why did it break? I could not find the matching meta tile in the list. Enemy stream dot meta tile. Yeah, I guess that doesn't need to be there. Okay. What? What are you reading? Palette file. Why? Why does it have two? Let's do this. So we exported that so that we get the JSON portion of it. And okay, so let's just use the enemy palette. So I don't understand. Did this do what it was supposed to? No, it did not. This is the problem with only working on this a couple times a week, is that I totally just forget how some of these things work. It should take a JSON file as an argument as well. Right. Target file name. Create sprite, initial sprite, load image palette. Initial sprite, it's loading the sprite metadata, so target metadata, where does that get set? Yeah, so it's just taking the additional argument there. So what's going on with that? Oh, I know why. Because it's creating it here. Forgot. Okay, so that's right now. All right, let's see if this will export properly now. Of course not. What are you trying to read that you can't read? Why is it still trying to read that? That's not right, though. I just... Oh, seriously. Oh, yeah. That would certainly help if it was referring to something that actually existed. Still wrong. Save that off. I probably need to specify the full directory. It's going to be kind of funny if it works here because of the fully qualified names. Specified file does not exist. Project shooter, right, assets. let's see what's going on here. Why is this still complaining? Load palette. lap0.pal. No. Why is it even using that still? Oh, when did that get changed? That shouldn't have been changed. Right, well that explains that. But I guess let's fix this because this is dumb that this is crashing because of that. If not file exists, what is it called? Is it system hooks? Well, let's put a message in at least. This way at least we can kind of puzzle over that instead of it crashing and having nothing useful when that occurs. Alright. So if we go back to the wrong file here and run this. Okay, cool. So at least it has a useful message if we try and run that. And we can be like, where is it even getting that from? Oh, right, there it is. Okay. So we've got the sprite was exported there. It's got that correctly now. See if the export process for the map will function again now that we've fixed that particular issue. Could not load the specified palette because the file does not exist. Enemy pal. Where the hell are these other files referring to that palette? Fully qualified. Okay, right. Because my software sucks and needs the full path. Fair enough. Try that again. Now what? Oh, right, that's my bad. I gotta re-export the sprite to reference that properly. Okay. Now let's try. Okay, cool. So now, sorry that took way longer than it should have, but it's been a while since we've modified that stuff, and I honestly had almost no recollection of how that stuff works. Okay, so 898 and draw entities. Oh, you know what? Well, wait a minute. That's weird because... Is it because it's not defined as a projectile or an object? I know there was some stuff that we had done there to separate those lists out of one or the other for the purposes of tracking it better in the game in the one of two possible lists that it can be tracked in memory. So let's no, that's the whole thing. Where is one of my sprites? Like, do this, look at this one again. Is animated, collision points, bounding boxes. I'm not seeing what I'm looking for. Huh. I'm working on trying to add a new enemy, or adding an enemy type back in so that we can start playing around with some more game mechanics. Specifically, how firing the various weapons will interact with an energy level in the game. That's kind of what I was hoping to work on, but I'm going through and trying to remember how all these tools kind of work together to get things going, because it's been a while since I've messed with any of this. And what I'm seeing is that it's generating code that has a problem because we're getting two sets of the low altitude projectile type being defined, which I'm not 100% sure of why or how that happened. Also, these monitors I have here have this weird thing that they do where they just randomly decide to bring up a menu. It's really distracting. So why is this coming up twice? Did I accidentally place this as a layer object as well as a map enemy type? Just look at this for a second here. This text file no longer relevant. That I don't need. Let me go to this. So we got the sprite. I've got those meta tiles. Not sure why. Oh, you know what? I should be using enemy 0.palette. Let me fix that real quick. Alright, so that is that, but why is it doing that sort of double export of this content? I know it does. I remember it looks at how the content is being used and determines some of this export stuff on the fly. But again, it's been a while since I've looked at that, so oh, wait. Is it because I think I remember why. So yeah, this is just down to having kind of piece things together real quickly without a plan, and so I then ended up doing something that I had forgotten. So I think what's happening is the original way the low altitude projectile was set up, because okay, yeah, so the way we had built the level structure was that when you have some sort of sprite that you want to bring into the game, but it is not actually placed into the game on the map because it's a sprite that's spawned by something in the game, you define it here as just a sprite in this list. If you have it on the map, you don't need to do that because the map itself sort of instantiates it into the export process. So that's why we're getting it twice here. So the question is then, what's actually generating these, if anything, at this point? Flyby. So that's firing those. Is that the only thing that's firing those? That's what it looks like. But I thought there was a sort of a turret type thing. Let's see. So that's the medium object. I mean, it's probably good that we're going back and revisiting some of this because it's been a while. And like I said, I don't remember much of how this works, again, because of how long it's been. So process medium, is that what's actually... So that's this file, enemy stream. Well, let's try this. Let's go back to here, and in our objects layer, let's get rid of this. Let's remove that tile set because we don't need to be able to place it. No, you're not going to let me get rid of it. Confused as to why I can't. Alright, doesn't like that I want to remove it, but that's fine. Let's import. Oh, there we go. That's weird. Let's import the flyby and go into the objects and let's try exporting one of these. Just to make sure that what I was saying is actually true and that it will actually export correctly and not have any weird duplicates. Yep, so that went away, so this should compile okay. Right, so that's just 1409. Probably need to figure out a way to fix that too, because it's hard coding the comparisons and the jumps, and at some point it's probably better that I don't have to comment those in and out as I add things, but not tonight's problem. Let's see if the enemies appear as expected, or the one enemy anyway. There should be one just that flies by on the screen. You know what I didn't do? L process flyby. I'm not actually checking that. Helps to actually check for the type to process. Should have thought of that before. So it's kind of towards the end of the map here. Let's speed it up a little. There it is. Oh, okay. So that's my incorrectly named so it creates the enemy at the bottom, which is kind of, or sorry, at the top, which is kind of your warning that there are going to be enemies coming up from the bottom that you have to avoid. Probably need to... So that little jump that occurred is because of the flip over to repeat scroll mode. We'll fix that later. So, okay, so that's how that's all working. Kind of weird that what is it adding here? And 3F, float A, add projectile, low altitude projectile. That definitely wasn't a low altitude projectile it added. Almost looked like it was a medium ship. It was. It was a medium ship, so why is that wrong? Oh, probably because, let's see, process, projectile loop. Because that's what it's doing. It's spawning the medium. Okay. Well, at least that makes sense, sort of. So is the scout the one that just flies from the bottom? I don't even remember. Medium. Sorry, this is kind of a mess. This is pretty disorganized, and that's because we've been spending so much time focusing on the scrolling functionality that the stuff that we've put together has for the enemy spawning. I mean, it works, but what's actually there is pretty poorly organized at best. And the names are all wrong because we were just kind of piecing things together. Let me talk a little bit about what I'm thinking about doing for the gameplay, and then we can see if we can put some of this together quickly, maybe. So what I'd like to be able to do is have it that the player, when flying through, will have, as I've talked about, I want the enemy placement stuff to work a little bit different than traditional shooters, where it's always coming from the top, and I'd like to be able to do something where we have the idea of this turret that's firing from the ground up, and we had done some basic work sort of prototyping that. That looked good. We had, and that's where the low altitude projectile item sort of came from. I said I wanted to be able to do something where enemies could approach from the rear, and that's where that current implementation of flyby, where you have the item kind of show up at the top, and then the enemies show up at the bottom in line with where you are. That's where that came from way back. And so those two ideas are kind of cool because they are sort of a little more realistic. I think one of the things that I wanted to do was play around with the idea of how, I don't know that it's ammunition, but like energy works. So if you have a whole bunch of ships here that are flying towards you, let's just say, like a standard shooter, they're slowly kind of hovering down from the top of the screen. Generally, your main weapon, you just keep firing, so you'd kind of mow them down in one direction or another. And what I'd like to be able to do is something a little bit different, where either your main gunfire has an energy meter that starts full, and as you fire, it cuts down what your meter has in it until it's either empty or too little for you to fire. And then over time it'll fill back up again. So something like that, or there's the primary weapon that always fires, but then there are going to be secondary weapons that have a meter like that. The only reason I don't like it being a secondary meter is I think there's something potentially interesting about setting up an energy meter for your projectile weapons, whatever they are, or your abilities to fire weapons or do something using whatever abilities the ship has. I think it'd be interesting to kind of have them all tied together rather than separating them out into primary fire and secondary fire, and instead make it that you're managing the resource of your energy level here, and you have to remember you have to be paying attention to how you're firing the weapon when you are firing, and switching between the different types of weapon you're using or ability you're using, so that you don't use it to the point where then you don't have the ability to fire any weapon or use an ability because you've used up your energy and you're waiting for it to refill. Now, the other thing that I was playing around with was similar to, and I'm not sure that I want to do this, but similar to how when you when you destroy an enemy in Ikaruga, it spawns off the little particles that you pick up. So in this case, we can't really do something like that, but you could do an energy capsule that. Where'd my color palette go? You don't want to show it when I make this smaller. Mischief. It's weird that it's fixed to when I'm in full screen mode. So, sorry. Anyway, so if I wanted to do something like, where's my pointer? Oh, helps if you don't hold the pen upside down. So then it'll create a little pellet that you can pick up and boost your energy, and that would make your energy meter go up for your weapons fire or whatever ability. I don't know that I want it tied specifically to the destruction of enemies so much as I want to maybe just have random drops of energy boosts, or not random. Yeah, I guess that's the opposite of random. Strategically placed in the design of the level to sort of either aid the player or make the player, once the player becomes a little bit more familiar with the game, they'll remember where these drops are, and then if they're trying to play through the level again, they will wait for, or if they die and have to play the level again, they'll wait for that drop to occur. And they'll be a little bit more sparing with their ability or weapon, so that they can get that energy drop and keep going. I personally haven't seen any shmups that use an energy bar for your weapons fire. That doesn't mean there aren't any, but I mean, if you're familiar with some or any, let me know. But not to say that this is a totally. I'm only going to do it if it's a unique idea. That's not the goal at all. It was just that it sounds like an interesting idea to use to me. So I wanted to give that a try. So something like player energy, and yeah, we'll use 2 bytes for that. We may decide we don't need to make it that granular, and that's okay. Player weapons abilities energy meter, and let's set that energy level to, I don't know, maybe it doesn't need to be 2 bytes to start off with, because I have no idea what it should be and how granular we'll need to make it to balance this. So this will just be one of those things that we'll playtest heavily, you know, adjusting that level and see if we come up with a good solution. Let's just make it 255. And then player assembly is there. Or am I processing the input? Check start. Check B, check A. Okay. Button flag. Okay, add bullet. So right now we're just sort of adding bullets ad nauseum, so I can just keep firing literally as many as fast as I can, as we have entity slots for. If we bring up the script here, you can see the second list, which is that's funny, I have it backwards. Second list is the projectiles list. I don't know how I managed to reverse that, but anyway, I did. You can see as I'm hitting the button, if I hit it faster and faster, I can spawn as many bullets as I want. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the energy level, and player energy, and we're going to compare it to, let's just say, for argument's sake, we want to make it so that you're limited to maybe I don't know, 10 shots to start off with. So that's 19 in hex. So we compare it to 19, and then if the carry is still set, then we're good. So if the carry is clear, because 19 was bigger, then we're going to go to finish controls. Basically, we're not going to... Do we have enough energy to do this? So right now we're just setting the limit. We're just saying, okay, if we don't have at least 25 energy, then don't do this. And then, of course, it helps if I actually subtract something from the energy. So set carry, subtract 19 hex, and then store it into player energy. Okay, so now we should get to a situation where if we fire, we will run out eventually of bullets, and we did. Okay, so let's add to our script something that tracks the player energy, so that we don't have to add anything right now in the game. Eventually we'll have to add something to the HUD so you can actually see it, but for now, let's do it right above the camera. And let's see if the debugger will help us here. I think it'll tell me the address of player energy, 9B. What is that third parameter for? Well, if false was good enough for me before, why wouldn't it be good enough for me now? Alright, so that's their energy level. Let's see. What's wrong with my attempt to index nil value field mem type? Oh. There we go. So so there's energy. It's at 5. If we restart the game and restart the script, and as we fire, it decreases. Great. So we'll want to represent that with a graphical bar at some point, but that's I'm good with leaving that for now. All right, so process player. So for the player, let's just say for argument's sake that every time we process the player, we're going to increase the player's energy. Increase, let's do this. Load player energy, compare to 255, branch if equal to there. We don't need to increase if it's already at 255. Energy. All right. So now if I fire, now we're kind of back in the same situation where I can still fire pretty much whenever I want. Although I am a little bit more limited here compared to what I was able to do before. I like that the I like that the enemies flying up from the bottom fly faster than the bullets you're shooting, and as a result, can crash into them. All right, so that effectively achieves what we want, but I want that recharge rate to be slower. Maybe we'll do it in line with I don't know, the camera counter speed. That's just where we're artificially slowing some things down. Let's load the script again. Yeah, so that's... So now we're at a point where the energy refresh is a lot slower. So we're hitting a hard limit of how many bullets we can fire out, which is good. So let's see. Do we have any enemies that actually just fly onto the screen and attack? I have no idea. There was one. There was one at one point. This just flies up from the bottom. That doesn't help me. This one is the thing that triggers that. I guess I should have saved. Some of those. Yeah, didn't really get all that much done here, but I think I need to regroup. This is kind of a lousy stream, just because I'm in between how this all works, and like I said, we had some enemy types that we created, but were kind of ripped apart for testing purposes to create some new things that don't make a whole lot of sense now, or at least in the context of what we've got. And if I start working on this now, we're going to be here for another 2 hours easily, and I just don't know. I don't know that it's worth it, given that for the next 2 weeks I'm not going to be working on this. So I think I'm going to call it quits right now. But when I get back to it, I will have some organization around what I'm doing, so that we can actually get into adding enemies that make sense, that we'll actually plan on using. I have put together a brief outline of, I don't know if I can open this right now. I've put together a brief outline of what I want to have the levels be for the game. So the goal, and I've mentioned this before, the goal, I'm just bringing up the information here so I can kind of show you guys a little bit. The goal is that I want to have it so that there's kind of Mega Man style of choosing levels, essentially, where you have the game. So it's going to start you off in a here. I'll just grab this text and pop this into. So it'll start you off in the capital city, which will be the sort of intro tutorial level, kind of giving you an intro to how the game works, the mechanics, the story, the look and feel of the game, some of the some of the just basic stuff that you get in any game that has sort of that intro level that you don't have a choice to but to play. And then after that, I've got some levels already in mind that I wanted. I'm not 100% sure that's it. I want some additional ones in there, but I'm not sure which ones will make sense. And then there will be, again, similar to the way Mega Man tends to do things, it will then bring you to a final sort of set of levels that are linear. And I like that progression, especially in the storyline that we have here for the game, which I won't go into too much because, again, I've said that I'm going to try and be sort of spoiler free on this as much as possible. That progression makes sense for the way that the story fits together, and I like that it's not something that I've seen shooters do typically. I like the idea of giving the player choices of what levels they can play, and potentially replay as they discover new things in the other levels that they haven't played yet. But this is all stuff that is just kind of vaguely in my head here and needs to be fleshed out. And while it's cool that I can, do things like add the ability to limit the ability to fire your weapon, that in and of itself is pretty limited. Pretty limited by the fact that I don't have more of the actual gameplay and story worked out. I mean, the thing is, the good thing about that is that means we're kind of past most of the technical items that needed to be worked out. Obviously, it's not perfect, as we discovered as I went through a lot of this this evening. The tools I had some issues with because it's been a while since I've gone in and added things to the level and changed the level around, and some of these things will have to be smoothed out, but they do work, and so that's ultimately just a sort of thing of working with them some more. Again, they're going to need to be tweaked as we add more things to the game due to the story requirements. So anyways, that's sort of a long, rambly way of saying I think we're done today. And when I come back, I'm going to have a better outline and a list, a to-do list of things that we're going to start building in terms of enemies and additional projectiles and abilities, not projectiles, weapons and abilities, and we'll start getting those coded in to build these levels that I was talking about and see how we're doing. At some point we'll have to build a level select screen. Hopefully the title screen will be done soon, maybe, I don't know. And music wise, like I said, we'll probably just integrate in an existing sound engine. Maybe we'll do one stream or a recording where I just work on that and get something that I recorded in FamiTracker to play back in the game. So anyway, as always, thanks for watching. If you have questions, you can reach me on on Twitter at Clairvis. I'm on Nintendo Age as Zelius, as well as the Discord as Zelius. You can reach me on my email as zelius@gmail.com. I will try to be in touch while I'm out for the next couple of weeks, but just expect a delay if you want to reach out to me and talk about something. But I hope to be refreshed and excited when I get back and get some of this stuff moving so that the game can actually progress and be playable and whatnot. So thanks, have a good night, and see you next time. Take care.